Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Whiteblood Panorama on your favorite channel, Whiteblood Multimedia. I'm your host, Umar Isa Dandago. Well, my guest today is a famous journalist, one of, if not the youngest editor-in-chief of a national newspaper. Naziru Mika'il Abubakar worked for the BBC and rose up to the position of the editor of its Abuja office. 3 years ago, he was appointed the editor-in-chief of Daily Trust. So how has the journey been so far? Well, Naziru Mika'il Abubakar, Daily Trust's newspaper's editor-in-chief, joins me right now in the studio. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for coming.
Thank you, Umar. Nice to have you.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's been an honor hosting you, and I have to thank you once again for not just coming here, but for honoring my personal invitations. Whenever I invited you to any show I present, you normally come. Thank you very much once again.
You're welcome.
Well, to cut a long story short, let's get to know who is Naziru Mika'il Abubakar briefly.
Okay, so my name is Naziru Mika'il Abubakar, as you said. I was born in Kano, precisely in Koki quarters, and I grew up there. I studied there. I went to Goni Danzaraga Quranic school. That's where I had my primary and secondary school education.
Which means you are Hafiz of Quran. That's great.
Alhamdulillah. So from there I went to College of CAS,
Kano?
Yeah.
College of Arts
and Remedial Studies.
Yes,
CAS.
Kano.
And then from there I went to BUK. Obviously I studied mass communication. I graduated. After that, yes, I did my NYC in Abuja. From there, I started working with the BBC immediately after my NYC. Then the opportunity of working with the BBC took me to work after the Abuja office, to work in London. And then from there, I had the opportunity to do masters at the University of Leicester, and then come back to Nigeria to do a lot of other work for the BBC in Abuja, in Lagos. And then, yeah, I moved to New York to also do another masters, and then come back. I joined Daily Trust, as you said at the beginning. So since then, I've been the editor-in-chief of Daily Trust, but recently I got a different title, which is called Group Executive Director, in charge of editorial and digital. Because Media Trust is now a group company, so we have Daily Trust, Armenia, of course, and then we have Trust Television. We now have Trust Radio, which is coming up in the next 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, excellent. So congratulations.
That's generally about me. But then I love Kano. Unfortunately, we've been relegated.
Yeah,
it's fine.
And is there any European club that you support? Probably from England.
Well, not really in England. I used to support Lazio. That's in Italy, but then Lazio's gone down. So I've been floating around. I don't have a European club anymore.
Why not Manchester United or City?
Not really. Yeah, but I follow sometimes, not watch, but I read the outcome. But I do watch when I have time, but it's not easy.
And you used to take part in the BBC House of Commentary together with Aminu Abdul Qadir. Yeah, back then when you were with the BBC in London. Yeah.
Yes. That was really cool, and it was a nice experience because I love sports and I follow sports very keenly. Yes, as I said, most of the places that I traveled initially in Nigeria myself, I did so while following Kano Pillars to away matches actually. So yeah, that was really good.
That's cool, excellent. So let's now dive deeply into the crux of the discussion. Exactly 3 years ago, I can remember towards the end of December, after we came back from the Vision FM studio where I hosted you for my radio show Global Arena, you got a lot of phone calls, and I realized that many people were maybe started to congratulate you. And like a day after, on Monday, that was on Sunday, but the following day on Monday, we got it all over the country that you were appointed as the editor-in-chief of Daily Trust. How did it come to you? Was it a surprise, a shock even? Or it was a pre-planned thing? You were just aware of it before it happened?
Okay, so not really like a surprise per se, because it's a job that you have to go through some processes for you to get it. So I've been in conversation with them long before the announcement, and I knew the appointment before it was made public. So in that sense, it's not a shock. But I think what I would say, it was like, love the BBC really, because it's part of my life, and then love the people around me at the BBC, and then love what I was doing then. But then making the move, even though I kind of like specialized in print journalism while in school, but then I practiced it a bit for some months, but then I now have to move completely into broadcast and digital, and then now I had to now come back to lead this leading newspaper organization, which of course was in transition also to digital. But then, so that was kind of like, it was really a big decision for me. And then the announcement, what was shocking was the kind of like the euphoria and the reaction that trailed the announcement. I was really humbled by a lot of comments and support that I got from quite a number of people. So yeah. And
okay, you had your own second master's degree in New York City. Was it part of the plan for you to just easily ascend to the throne of editor-in-chief of Daily Trust?
Not really, because when I decided to go to New York, obviously working with Daily Trust or any other organization was not in my mind, but maybe it's part of the struggle in life to challenge yourself to try and do something else, because I left a comfortable job at the BBC, because it's not like the BBC was paying me when I went to the US. No, I actually resigned from the BBC in a way to take a study leave. So it's not like a study leave where they will continue to pay you. No, I resigned even though there is a provision for me to come back on my job whenever I finish my studies. But Allah had it that I would never come back to the job, so I resigned before that period. But then there was kind of like that arrangement for me. I could always come back, but I completely left the work to go and do the study because I want a fellowship, a global fellowship. But then so it was really kind of like part of the plan to challenge myself to see what the living in the US. Number one, living in the US, it's an experience, and then NYU as a global institution is also another experience. And then so you get there to meet new people. But actually, to surprise you, the Daily Trust job, actually the referral to the Daily Trust job came from as a result of that NYU engagement. As some of the new people that I knew while in NYU, so the referral came through that. So you can see, so it's always good for somebody to kind of like try and challenge yourself. That's the lesson, because when I was leaving the BBC, I remember one of my neighbors in Abuja was telling me, when I told him that I was leaving for New York, he said, "What about you, Joe?" I said, "I resigned, but I can come back." He said, they will not pay you? I said, "No, they will not pay me until when I come back." He said, "How can you do that?" So he was so shocked that I was leaving a job to just go back to school. And then, but in life, you have to try some of these things.
Yes, excellent. So how did you get this position as editor-in-chief in the first place of Daily Trust when you started in, was it 2020, January 2020? How did you find the position?
Okay, so number one, it was like a media role and a leadership position, which alhamdulillah I had the opportunity to lead before. So I'm working with the BBC because its nature is such a global organization with a lot of diversity, diverse people, diverse content. So
they call it the United Nations of the media.
Yes, the whole service. So and while at the BBC, I had gone through different leadership trainings, courses, and that had actually prepared me for a bigger role like this. And also, while in New York, we've gone through a lot of programs and to prepare one for challenges like this. So that actually helped me to kind of like settle. But it was tough because you're coming to completely new organization, and at the same time you're coming to lead some of the people that your colleagues, because we used to meet at different media forums and things like that, but not working in the same organization. So that was also a challenge, but also because it's also entirely it was a print media, as I said, so leading them, and also is big. The number of people, for example, that are directly reporting to me were huge. So this was also a challenge, but also it was a media organization in transition, because they want to transit into a much more multimedia company rather than a newspaper company. So that was also a challenge, and it was my responsibility to lead on that aspect as well. But also then the pandemic set in immediately. We started like a few months after March, so that was really kind of like cut up of my plans that I came with for like a year and a half, because now when the pandemic set in, it was the issue of survival, not actually anything else. So everywhere, not only for Daily Soap, but every company globally, that was the thing. So we have to now face the pandemic to ensure that we survive the pandemic, and then now, which is now that we're trying to rebuild and begin to do some of the things that we had actually wanted to do. And that was why you had to downsize the staff. You had to reduce the number of staff that were working for Daily Trust before you? Yes, because the pandemic was a reality. Not only private companies, even government that has the kind of like the responsibility to provide jobs to people. They have to downsize. They have to do what a thing. But you see, one good thing with this kind of thing is like, it was a global thing everywhere. Even bigger companies, they have to do that. And that's your excuse? No, it's not the excuse. The excuse is like, we want to ensure that the company stays on its foot and we put it on the right position. So we now have to develop so many plans, you know, to ensure that happens. And it wasn't, downsizing was not the only thing. I myself, as editor-in-chief, I had to take a pay cut, for example. Like I had to, my salary had to be reduced because we want to ensure that the survival of the company has to survive before us. You know, and I have to say it was a very good decision at that, because it's now what we're seeing. Now we have beaten the pandemic, and now the company is back. Look at now, after the pandemic, we have now set up a Trust Television. We had dozens of people. We're now setting up a radio. People were going to hire quite a number of additional people. Even the Daily Trust in the news, the main news, we have now hired additional people. So you can see, so it's just like it was a temporary measure to deal with the problems of that time, which Allah had helped us to successfully dealt with that. Yes, and a guy asked me to put a question to you, that why has Daily Trust been hiring people based on freelance job? Like where have you been using freelance journalists instead of permanent staff? Okay, so it's not like the notion that is not correct to say like we have only been hiring freelance journalists. No, we do have people on permanent contract. We have people that we call them on contract, and then we have freelancers. And freelancing job is not new in the media industry. It's a global practice. It has been there since the birth of journalism. Freelancing means like you have somebody who can work with you, and you deal with him based on the output or the number of the content that they supply to you, and you pay them that, and then that also gives them opportunity to also do other things at the same time. So this is a practice that is being done everywhere. I can say that maybe the reason why I'm asked this question, because I was the one that brought it into Daily Trust. So, and I'm happy to accept that I brought it, because it's a good thing. I believe it's a good thing. There are people that are now, after being converted to freelancing, are now earning more than 4 times of what they used to earn when they were on contract. But there is a complaint from inside Daily Trust that a journalist, a reporter, like let's say from Jigawa, from Benue, from any other state in Nigeria, can write a report, send it, like package it, everything ready, but then the editor would just refuse to kind of publish it. And like, if that story does not get published, then that person would not be paid. Yeah, that's one of the challenges that the freelancers all over the world have to face, because if it is commission, the best way of aspect of freelancing work is when you are commissioned by your editors. The editor will write to you, say, Umar, go and do a story about this from Kano or from anywhere. And then you go and they give you a commissioning template and you go and do it and deliver. If they have anything they want you to add or reduce, they would help work with you to do that. But on a situation whereby you wake up and come across something and then you file, the editor is at liberty to kind of like use it or not. It depends for several reasons. Maybe because of space constraints, maybe because the story is not relevant to the end of the day, or maybe there are bigger stories, for example, if it is a new story. But if it is a feature, even if it is not used today or this week, obviously it has a lifespan and then it can be used the following week or whatever. So that's, I think, this is a normal gatekeeping process, which I think all journalists and editors understand.
Don't you think sentiment could play a role in doing that? And probably if the editor is not friendly with the reporter, then he could easily, well, kill the story of that person.
Well, you said sentiment. Obviously, we're all humans. You cannot count out sentiment. But I think a good editor who answers his or her name wants a good story. Okay. It doesn't matter where the story is coming from. It doesn't matter the person filing the story. All you want is your output, whether it's newspaper or television or radio, to have the best stories that can help you to reach more audience and also helps you to win awards. That's what, as an editor, I don't really care about the byline of the reporter, but what I care more about is about the quality of the content. But the other aside of this, you cannot actually maybe remove some of these bias because we are all human beings.
So that's excusable?
No, I'm not saying excusable. I'm saying you cannot, I cannot, because I don't know the editors and I'm not the one dealing with this at the first stage. Okay. So I cannot say that. But what I believe is like a good editor wants a good story. And I think if the story is good, I don't think, even if one editor drops it, the other will pick it.
Okay, now briefly, let's take you a little bit back. What are the roles of the editor-in-chief? Because you told me that you're not directly dealing with those editors who are responsible for publishing the stories.
No, it's not like I'm not
in the stories.
No, it's not like I'm not dealing with the editor. I'm dealing with editors. What I'm saying is like I'm not dealing with the reports and the reporters at the first level. We have what we call line managers or line editors. So they deal with the reporters directly, you know. So they commission and they send, you know, and they are the one to do the editing first and make the decision before they pass it to the next level of editor. So as editor-in-chief, there are certain stories that I deal with, but there are certain stories that I don't have to deal with other editors because they also are editors in their own right, and they have what it takes to take decision and also to decide whether the story is worth publishing or not. But there are stories that I commission myself as well. For example, almost all of my reporters, majority of them, I have their numbers in my phone, and they have my numbers. Sometimes even some interns who are doing NYC with us, I have some of their numbers. So if I have anything to deal with you or any story to commission, sometimes I message them directly or call them.
Okay. So what sort of stories personally are you responsible for example?
So I'm responsible for every story. This is my response to your question because I have to account for everything that gets published on any of the Daily Trust platforms.
Which means you have to go through every story before it gets published?
No, I don't have to go through every story because I have other capable editors working with me as colleagues. So as I said earlier, they are editors in their own right, and they have the power and authority to decide on stories and edit them. So you see, so they have, because I cannot be like, I'm not a robot. I cannot be like editing all the stories, you know, there are others. That is why it's a teamwork. So, and it's a chain. The newsroom work is a chain. The producer has to do his one, the reporter has to do his one, the editor has to do his one, and then the presenter, you know, all these kind of things. So it's like that. So everybody does his work and I do my own. Then we, at the end, we come up with the final product. So it's a credit to all of us, not to the reporter alone, not to the editor in the middle, and not to the editor-in-chief. So it's the credit to every one of us. But if we don't work together, we'll not have a final product.
Do you think you deserve to be the editor-in-chief of Daily Trust?
I don't think this is a question for me. I think it's a question for the audience, the readers, and probably our managers. Yeah, so obviously, if I was just given a job and I feel I should try it, so that's what I'm doing.
How relieved, another challenging question, how relieved should we feel that your sentiment, your personal opinions and views and like worldview would not interfere and meddle in the work of Daily Trust as a newspaper in general? Okay,
so we have an editorial guideline. We have a style book that we follow that guides our activities editorially. So I think before I joined Daily Trust, I worked at the BBC. So more like the BBC and Daily Trust were more or less the same organization in terms of culture, in terms of editorial thinking. And by the way, those who formed Daily Trust from the editorial perspectives were all former BBC. Many of them were former BBC staff, so they came with that mindset. And so the two difference is like, major difference is like BBC is a public organization, not for profit, but Daily Trust is for profit. So this is the major difference. But in terms of editorial standard, in terms of editorial work, so we try to uphold every standard. So we remove ourselves from the work that we do, in the sense that our personal views and whatever, which we expect every human to have a personal view, so we don't bring it into the work. So we're apolitical, we're impartial, we try to be fair and accurate and balanced in whatever we do.
So let's now talk about the editorial board, because like an editorial piece of writing you released titled "A Nation in Search of Its Leader" on Sunday the 10th of July 2022 at about 4:09:34 seconds WAT, that's West African time. In it, you raised a lot of things, though using a mesmerizingly attention-grabbing yet bombastic language. And I put to you some of the quotes, some of the paragraphs that I carved out of the piece. It says, and I quote, "The economy is in a tailspin as illustrated by a biting fuel scarcity, a currency not worth the cost of printing it, and rising prices of all goods and services, even as incomes and jobs dwindle. We understand that Nigeria's economy is not immune to the global economic challenges being faced all over the world, but this government can do and needs to do more to assure citizens that things would get better. As it is, Nigeria is on its knees, and Nigerians can testify and have testified that they have never had it worse in every respect." Is it part of your editorial agenda to be highly critical of this government? Because one person has just put a question to me, Nura Rabi Nura, former student union leader in Delhi, said, why do you hate the present administration of Muhammad Buhari? Is it part of your agenda to discredit the government completely?
Okay, I will answer first the editorial line that you quoted. I think every Nigerians, maybe majority of Nigerians living in the country, I think will agree with this paragraph from this editorial.
Okay.
I would say this is my response to it, because what it's saying is we're just reminding the government the current situation in the country. We know that
there is a bit of exaggeration
the situation of our currency, and also the issue of the cost of printing it. Maybe that is why the CBN is now redesigning the naira, and so you can see. So we were in some way prophetic, because we said this, and now the CBN is taking action. But also in terms of searching of a leader, because we now want to prompt the government to really wake up and take action, because this situation like this requires action. So you see, and we were so fair to the government in saying we realize that, we understand that the whole country, it is globally, there are challenges.
Yes.
So you can see, so we said that, and we understand that the pandemic, the Ukraine-Russia war, and everything has contributed to all this. But we believe that the government needs to do more.
Also the drop in the price of oil globally.
So
but this title in search of a leader, doesn't this sound like you are saying that there is no leader in Nigeria?
No.
This is English.
No, we're just trying.
It's a vague language.
No. Of course, we know there's a leader. We know there's somebody elected, and we recognize elected authorities, and I'm sure the government knows that. But what we are saying is like, in search of the leader. We're saying in crisis period like this, the leader needs to do extra work.
Okay.
You know, it's not an ordinary period.
What about the defeat of Boko Haram? Another paragraph, it says the government's defeat of Boko Haram, technical or otherwise, is now no more than a victory recorded too early. Nigeria, it must be said, is now effectively back to where the president took it over in 2015. Only much worse, much worse. It's like you're saying also that Nigeria was better off under Goodluck Jonathan and worse in Buhari administration.
No, it was not that simple. You know, we were talking about insecurity, the security situation. There were other things that were better now under the previous administration. But what we're saying, under in terms of security, and if you live in the northwest or in the north central, obviously the people, they will agree. Maybe because you're comfortable here in Kano, there's relative peace, and then you don't understand. But people in Zamfara, Katsina, or Sokoto, they would completely agree with this comment, and people in the south. So that's the reality. But in general, the question from Nura, we're not really, we're not anti-government. We didn't hate Buhari at all. No, really. Actually, we have no reason to hate him, but we don't hate any government. But we're just doing our work. But when Obasanjo was there, he said the same thing. We went to court several times. He said the same thing. When Goodluck Jonathan actually said it 2 years ago when he came for our Daily Trust dialogue. He said when he was in government, he said he thought that we were actually out there for him. But now after he left office, he realized when he now see the way that we continue with our same nature of coverage, he now realized that we were just doing our work. So that was the former president in his own words. So I'm sure the current president will say the same after he leaves office.
And now you're trying to be fair, as journalistic as possible.
Yeah, we're impartial actually. We don't owe anything to anyone. If you check our special edition on Buhari's 80th birthday that we did, there were a lot of articles praising the president and some of the achievement that he has recorded about personally and during his current government and when he was a military president. So we don't have any problem with him.
Okay, so to be clear now, you are not anti-Buhari.
No, we're not anti anybody. We're not pro anybody. we're only pro the Nigerian public, in the Nigerian state. And yes, that's all we serve. We exist to serve our audience. Finally,
regarding your editorial, there's one thing that also compelled me, that also took my attention when I was reading that editorial piece of July 2022. It says, and I quote, "We feel compelled to point out to the president, since his advisors will not tell him," this is very much huge, "that almost all his achievements in government across all sectors are now being completely eroded even before he leaves office." This is too much, Naziru.
No, what the paragraph is saying is like, if the president has actually achieved quite a lot, because this paragraph admitted that.
Yes, has pointed out.
In infrastructure, in managing finances, coming up with some anti-corruption policies. But then if you leave the country in the hands of non-state actors in the southeast, in the northwest, in the north central, you see, and then with still pockets of Boko Haram activities in the northeast, that means people would not remember the second Niger bridge because they cannot follow it to go to the southeast to celebrate Christmas with their relatives. They cannot remember the Kaduna-Abuja train because they could not ride it to Kaduna or to Kano. They could not go to Katsina in Basari to have their weddings. They're now doing their weddings in Abuja. So they would not remember all this infrastructure work. So that's why that paragraph, what is talking about. Just do something to curb the insecurity so that people would see your other achievements.
How sure are you that his advisors are not telling him what to do and what not to do?
No, that is another way in writing, another way of telling somebody to kind of like check his advisors or try to reshuffle them or try to hear from others.
Okay. So Buhari's advisors are not doing their job.
No, they are doing their work, but they need to do more. That's what, and the president needs to find another way of getting advice from them and other people. That's what the paragraph was trying to say.
Well, Naziru Mika'il, thank you very much indeed for answering our tough questions.
Thank you.
And well, we will be back shortly for the second episode, and the second episode will definitely be addressing questions from our viewers and Daily Trust newspapers readers, of course, and followers on social media. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. We'll be back in the next episode with a lot of hard-hitting questions to Naziru Mika'il. My name is Umar Isa Ndogo on this Whiteblood Panorama on your favorite channel, Whiteblood Multimedia. Thank you.